Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over some of the rumors that we've been hearing in regards to the upcoming Nintendo Direct. And I'm also going to be talking about some of my personal choices, some of the games that I feel make sense to come to the Switch at this point. But before we get started, if you enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing if you aren't already. Alright, now first up, probably my most anticipated game of the last 5 years, Metroid Prime 4. Oh my goodness, I am really looking forward to this Nintendo Direct because there's almost I would say 80% chance that they're going to show off some kind of gameplay footage or some kind of cinematic, because literally all we have up to this point is a banner for Metroid Prime 4. Which came about 2 years ago, so I think we're all due to see something from this game. Now, we've all heard a lot of news, for those of us who have been paying attention to Metroid Prime 4, of the kind of development team they are putting together. Obviously, Retro Studios is back in charge, which I'm extremely excited for that decision that Nintendo should have made from the get-go, but we're here now. There's a couple staff members that are being added to the team from projects like Halo and Call of Duty, just to name a few. And I think that's really exciting news when you think about what those games represented for the multiplayer scene. So not only should we expect a fantastic Metroid Prime game, but expect a potential multiplayer that will be incredible. Now, there's a part of me that loved Federation Forces for the multiplayer that it provided, so I also hope that potentially they could split up the single-player campaign into areas so that you could have 4-player cooperative with objectives. I think that that is a really good idea and could bring a lot of replay value to the game. Outside of that, we have Metroid Prime Hunters, which brought a Quake 3 Arena-like multiplayer. I think would fit perfectly as an extra mode in this game. But we got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to move right on. Next game, another 4, Pikmin 4, one of my favorite franchises of all time. If you're not familiar with it, it's a Nintendo spin on real-time strategy, and it's one of the most beautiful and quirky looking games I've ever played. You are literally a microscopic person with little vegetable people, each with their own different traits. Red Pikmin are resistant to fire, can fight fire enemies, they're fairly strong. Purple Pikmin are heavy, kind of like sumos, they weigh more than other Pikmin, they can lift more than other Pikmin. Then you've got Rock Pikmin, which can break through glass and other hard objects. Yellow Pikmin can pick up bombs and can be thrown higher. Blue Pikmin can exist underwater. So as you can see, there's a lot of different types of Pikmin. They're constantly, each game, growing the number of types of Pikmin that you have access to. But at the same time, I hope for this newest game that they expand upon what these Pikmin can do. Something like, say, the Blue Pikmin being able to actually swim. Maybe even the protagonist that you play being able to outfit themselves with scuba gear, so you could essentially not just be playing around in puddles, but go into cave diving or something like that. Just an idea, but I just think that there could be a lot more depth to the way that you traverse the world and interact with the world. Something like the Flying Pikmin being able to take you to higher heights in the levels. You know, everything up until this point has been fairly one plane, which is fine. You've got the water with Blue Pikmin, and then you've got the surface for everything else. But it's, you know, fairly shallow in that sense. But at the same time, I love the scale. I love that water droplets are almost the size of your character. I love that there are broken pots that you have to find chips for, and you can construct bridges. Like, there's just so many little aspects to the game. And 3 really increased the level of creativity when it came to the puzzles. The one thing I will say I missed a whole lot from the second game was product placement. I know that sounds silly, but I'm assuming because the Wii U wasn't doing that well, the product placement went out the window, because you got to pay for that kind of stuff. You'd find 7-Up bottle caps, you'd find Duracell batteries. Like, the list was not huge, but what was there was fantastic. And I'd like to see a few of those things come back, just to be like, whoa, you know, like, so you can feel a little closer to the experience. There was something about finding a Duracell battery that made you feel like maybe this is a world that you walked through or something. I'm going to be doing a separate video on Pikmin 4, or potentially Pikmin 5 if they do show off Pikmin 4, because I have my own ideas for what the next game could be like. Anyway, moving on. We have a whole lot of Mario games to talk about here. First up, one of my favorite games from the Wii U, Mario 3D World. It's a fantastic 3D Mario game, albeit not a traditional 3D Mario game, but it's the first and only 4-player cooperative 3D Mario game, which I think is an incredible feat considering how well it worked. The visuals were fantastic, and I think being HDified for the Switch would make it look even lovelier. Now, the one thing I will say about this game, the only thing I would need them to really change, maybe obviously add some new content, because Nintendo's gonna sell it for $59.99 as a deluxe version of the game. So I'm hoping for two things. More levels, more stars to collect, obviously. That all comes together into one thing I'd like added. The second thing being that the cooperative multiplayer is online. That's not a hard thing to ask for. I don't think it's impossible to ask for it, and I think it definitely is something that needs to happen, especially considering the times we live in right now, where not everyone can go over to a friend's house and play video games. So yes, couch co-op, but yes to online play. Next up, we have the rumored Mario All-Stars 3D, which would come with Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and Mario Galaxy. Now, personally, I hope that these games aren't just thrown out there in this one collection. I'm really, really hoping that they have been remade to a certain degree. Even if it's not a full remake, even if it's something like Wind Waker HD, just kind of spruce up those character models, maybe improve some of the lighting, but the core games need to be the same. So here's crossing our fingers to that, because I think that will be amazing. And these 3 games come in one package, which I think is fantastic, because at least 2 of these games speak to every Nintendo player, and hopefully the third one will grow on to them. Maybe they didn't play it enough, maybe they didn't appreciate it at the time, but for me, all 3 of these games are a hit. I am super excited. The one thing I will say for games like Mario Galaxy with motion controls, I would hope that they would implement the option to play more traditionally, because not everyone wants to play with motion controls, and that was one of the downfalls of the Wii when it came to hardcore gamers. So make it something that's accessible to the casual and fun for the hardcore gamer. Give us that option. Next up, we have No More Heroes 3. Now, I don't have much to go on other than the trailer for this game looked weird. Incredibly weird. But the first 2 games were incredibly weird. So expect a gore fest. Expect it to be beautiful, considering that the last 2 games were developed for the Wii. So the jump in power will enable this game to look pristine and delicious. I'm extremely excited for this game. And again, while I appreciate the motion controls, give us the option to play in a traditional manner. That's all I'm saying. Next up, there's a little rumor floating about, and I hope that this is true, about a new F-Zero game. The only reason I'm hesitant to believe it is because Shigeru Miyamoto himself said that he didn't understand why people wanted this game. Like, he didn't understand the love for F-Zero, and it's like, dude, I have the utmost respect for Shigeru Miyamoto. He is my sensei. He is someone I want to learn from in order to create the best games that I can for Nintendo one day, hopefully. But it's really not up to you to decide what people do and don't like, because if it was that way, we wouldn't have Metroid. Metroid is not a big hit in Japan. It's in fact fairly unsuccessful in Japan. So if a game does well in the West, just take it at face value, take it for what it is. F-Zero is popular to people. We have been craving a new F-Zero since GX on the GameCube. I really think now, with where the power level is with the Switch compared to the GameCube, the product could be so fantastic. Now, don't just spit out a new game. We would like you to take the time to make sure that it is a perfect kind of futuristic racer. We've got a game on the Switch called Fast RMX, which really does fill that gap for the most part for those F-Zero and Extreme G and Wipeout fans. But there is so much potential for this game to be insane. So don't cut corners. Take a look back at what made the series so special. Try to enhance that, but also bring it to 2020 standard. It isn't a hard project. That's not a hard thing to accomplish. So let's see it. I can't wait. If they do show it off at this Nintendo Direct, I will lose my bananas. Next up, we've got some Zelda. And some of these are coming from me. These are just things that I really want to see. Obviously, Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out at the end of the year. Super excited for that game, but you know, I'm hesitant. I've seen the trailer video, and I see that Zelda's involved, and I appreciate that. I really look forward to this new story because it looks a lot more in depth than the story we got in Breath of the Wild. Traditional Ganondorf seems to be a bigger part of this plot, and I am already excited for that. But I'm hoping that with bringing back some of these traditional elements, that they're also seeking to bring back some of the elements that were missing from Breath of the Wild. Things as simple as fishing, legendary items, swimming. You know, I miss having underwater temples and caves and just different things to do with water traversal. The fact that you can only swim on the surface is kind of lame. It reminded me of Wind Waker. Not that that was bad. Wind Waker was just a very specific kind of game, but I didn't want that for Breath of the Wild, and that's what we got. We catch fish by hand, which is not fun. You know, considering how good it felt to find the little fishing nook by Lake Hylia in Ocarina of Time, I was really disappointed by this, because I would have loved to have just been able to pull up to any river and throw out a line. Even if I could catch fish by hand, having the option to fish would have been fantastic. So I'm really crossing my fingers for that. I also really like the idea of having other weapons, and the fact that they're breakable allows the player to move on to new weapons. I really appreciate that. It reminded me of Wind Waker. I like that they break so that you can't rely on a single weapon. Cool. But things like the Master Sword, things like your legendary items like Boomerang, Megaton Hammer, Iron Boots, like these things need to be in the game and unbreakable. I'm sorry. Like, even if it takes the whole game for me to find the Master Sword, I feel like there's just a formula that was kind of lost with Breath of the Wild in order to accentuate the world that they had given us. So I totally respect their decisions with Breath of the Wild, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to see them all done the same way with Breath of the Wild 2. Another consideration that fans would probably be grateful of is potentially bringing back the upgrade system that Skyward Sword introduced. You have all these items, these armor mushrooms, all these things that you can pick up to enhance and make potions. There's no way to use these items toward building better weapons or items. Like, it just makes sense. Hopefully they have a system in place for this game like that, because it would have been great to take some of these stones like opal and diamonds and rubies and sapphires and implement them into your weapons, producing fire effects, ice effects, lightning effects. It just would have made the weapon system a lot better. And when you had a weapon that was close to being destroyed, you could take it to a blacksmith, especially if it's a great weapon, like a really one that you want to hold on to, because that was the thing. I'd hold on to weapons for far too long because I didn't want to use them and break them. So having a blacksmith system would be very welcome. Anyway, moving on to other Zelda games. Because the Switch is going to be going up against the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox One X, it's really going to come down to Nintendo ensuring that there are lots of games made by Nintendo that people can play. Not many people bought the Wii U, and as we've seen, Wii U ports are doing quite well on the Switch. With that being said, I would love to see a port of Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD, and one that hasn't even been HD'd yet, Skyward Sword. Now again, this is a game that I love, I appreciate, but I would think that maybe they figure out a way to make it more approachable to a hardcore gamer. Someone who would rather use the sword with their joystick than to wave around a Joy-Con. You know, there's just elements, there's ways in which they can achieve this. Either way, I think all three of these games would find a very comfortable home on the Nintendo Switch. Next up, I want to talk about Paper Mario Origami King. Now, the game is already released. I'm playing it right now. I'm having a blast. I'm really enjoying it. I'm hoping that the battle system doesn't get too stale and that they increase the difficulty so that the strategy becomes more inherent in the gameplay. But I feel like Paper Mario is distancing itself so much from traditional RPG, turn-based RPG elements that it's kind of clearing a path for the Mario and Luigi saga. When I play any of those games, those are clearly the Mario RPG that I remember in terms of like the type of gameplay that you get and the world that you traverse. It's very different than your traditional Mushroom Kingdom. So I feel like that game and this is wishful thinking, but I think that that game will be announced or is coming out in the next 2 years because it's been long overdue, and I'd be excited to see what kind of art style they would go with on the Switch. Would it still be 2D but really nice 2D, or would they move over to like a more 3D kind of situation like Mario X Rabbids Kingdom Battle? That was a fantastic game. So I'm looking forward to that idea, and finally having an RPG that Paper Mario fans will be happy with. Next up, I've heard some fairly unrealistic rumors, but if they're true, I don't know what I'll do with myself. But I've heard a rumor that Kingdom Hearts, the collection, is coming to the Nintendo Switch, which would make sense because the 3DS got a Kingdom Hearts game. It's not like Square is unwilling to put Kingdom Hearts games on Nintendo devices, and the Nintendo Switch is a handheld. At the end of the day, I think that this would be a great move for the Kingdom Hearts series. I think that Square would make a ton of money on this idea because Nintendo fans have been dying to play Kingdom Hearts for a long time. And I think that this would open up the floor for Square to put a character like Sora in Smash Brothers, which could definitely be a big part of the Smash Brother character lineup conversation because they're only on character 1 of 6 to be released, so Sora would fit perfectly. And the other rumor that I feel is unrealistic, but my gamer heart is crossing everything hoping for this to be real: Power Stone 3. If Capcom is making Power Stone 3, I think the best home for it would be on the Switch, alongside other party fighting games like Smash Brothers. What's great about Power Stone is that it's 3D, but it has the same kind of dynamic level design where things just unfold while you're playing this fighting game. It's incredible. But you also have this arsenal of items that pop up and add to the chaos of everything. So I think it would just be a magical experience for local and online play for the Nintendo Switch. Lastly, I do want to just quickly talk about some Smash Brothers characters that I think could be announced during this Nintendo Direct. Obviously, we've already talked about Sora, but that's kind of like a shot in the dark right now because we don't even know if Kingdom Hearts is really coming to the Switch. But I am going to say, with Paper Mario being out, maybe we might see a Paper Mario character. Honestly, by himself, that's fine, but I would prefer it if it was Paper Mario and Paper Luigi, and they kind of worked in tandem like the Ice Climbers. I think that that would be a magnificent idea, and the kind of mechanics that would come along with a character like that could be fantastic. And the one other character that I think, just in terms of like the release date of games coming out now, it makes sense to have a character like this be in Smash: Travis from No More Heroes. Considering that like Dragon Quest came out and then we got Hero, it just seems like it makes a whole lot of sense. So those are my predictions for some Smash Brothers characters. Anyway guys, let me know what you think about this upcoming Nintendo Direct, what you'd like to see, and let me know what you think about the video. Leave a like and a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy guys.